Welcome to the Inc. Productivity Tip of the Day.
Today's tip. If you use these 3 words, you're a more effective leader than most. Leadership is hard. Even under the best of circumstances, it's hard. Mostly that's because leadership is primarily about influence, and influence is primarily about relationships with other people. The problem is that people, as a general rule, are messy. They have different motivations, they make mistakes, and sometimes they let you down. As a leader, your job is to find the best way to motivate your team to work together towards a common goal, despite all of those things. It's also to bring out the best in your team, even when they aren't at their best. Of course, just because you're the leader doesn't make you perfect. Just because you're the person who gets to make the decisions doesn't mean you always make the right ones. Sometimes you're just wrong. The thing about being a leader, however, is that the type of personality that often ends up in that role tends to be allergic to the idea that they might sometimes be wrong. As a result, they build an entire structure around themselves to reinforce the idea that the leader is always right, regardless of what anyone else thinks. It's not hard to see how this could be problematic. If your ego is so big, and your pride is so fragile that you have to always be right, you miss out on the possibility that anyone else might be able to contribute in a meaningful way if it contradicts your own idea of how something should be done. Also, if you're convinced you're always right, sometimes you'll be wrong, which means your team and your organization will suffer. There are, however, 3 words that, if you use them on a regular basis, can make you a far more effective leader. I was wrong. The thing about admitting you're wrong is that it helps earn people's trust. If leadership is all about influence, trust is your most valuable asset. Those 3 words also help normalize humility and transparency, which, as a leader, are 2 things you definitely want on your team. You want the people on your team to feel like it's okay that they might sometimes get it wrong, because their leader also gets it wrong. The reason most leaders shy away from admitting they are wrong is that they think it somehow diminishes their leadership. They think they become less of a leader because admitting they're wrong makes them vulnerable to doubt. Except, and this is important, most of the time, when you're wrong, it's obvious to everyone. The fact that you won't admit it doesn't change anything, except it makes you look prideful and dishonest. Admitting you're wrong, on the other hand, is often admitting what everyone else already knows. It makes you seem self-aware and trustworthy, and people respect you a lot more than if you pretend like you're right just because you're the person with the title that says leader. Even when you're wrong about something people can't see, admitting it makes people trust you more. It makes you seem far more authentic and likable, and your team will be far more willing to follow your lead because they'll know that you're willing to tell them the truth, even when it's personally inconvenient or embarrassing. The last thing it does is make it clear to the people on your team that you know that you aren't perfect. More importantly, it normalizes the idea that it's okay to make mistakes, admit you're wrong, and figure out the best way to move forward. It makes it clear that you aren't trying to lead from a position of infallibility, but humility, which is a thing that every leader should practice and teach at the same time. Ultimately, the best leadership principles don't have to be complicated. Sometimes they're as simple as 3 little words. That's it from Inc. You can find more advice on being an effective leader at Inc.com. Check back tomorrow for another tip from Inc.